We saw several.
Order, we do have a forum. So meeting is adjourned open. First thing on, I know it's been a while, but approval of the minutes of September 27th. Don't know if anyone's got any comments, questions. You said it certainly has been a while, but any thoughts?
Listen here, like comment,
Okay.
move to accept, or did you just do that?
No, you can move to accept.
Move to accept.
Second? Okay. All right, do you want to, first off, I should ask, the agenda, everything, did you guys want to add anything or? On the agenda?
It looked good.
Okay,
Can I say something before we get going? I need to apologize to the board. I did exactly what I said I wasn't gonna do, and I got pulled into a Facebook discussion.
well, don't worry about it, we're actually, that's a good lead into the next thing that we're talking about, because it's the Facebook survey results that we wanted to talk about, and this pertained to trash only. And we did want to talk our way through some of that one. So I don't know how much, I don't, hopefully everyone's had the chance to take a look at them. The answers were very strongly skewed to one way to the other. I think the last question that we asked was the only one that had, and even that was skewed, that was question 3. Be willing to bring our trash to a central location like a dumpster if it saved money. But the town, at least, and I did write in the results here that we need to make sure, although it's a very strong indication, because it was Facebook, it's, you know, the margin of error, and I did a quick margin of error calculation. And I didn't have all the variables, so I did a little bit of guessing. If anyone knows margin of error, it's a statistical formula that's not really, although they have tools online now, but it was at least an 11% margin of error, which is a huge margin of error. So just in talking, but that said, we did have some very strong results. So for the most part, people were very satisfied with having their trash picked up at the end of the road, or at the end of their driveway.
Wendy, do you know what happened with the survey when it showed up? The whole introduction paragraph was not there, it was just question 1.
Actually, I want the instruction from them.
It didn't show up on one time, when I read it. And then a few days later, question 2 and 3 came along, and I can't remember if they were separate.
No, they all,
Separate posts or all together, or the last 2 together.
everything was a separate entity, so that it would be easier for people just to report their number as opposed to, you know, on question 1, I answered this, on question 2, and so each question was separately. And I think the introduction paragraph, if we go back and look at it, didn't pertain as much because of the vehicle we used, and I'll have to go back and take a look at what that intro paragraph, but as I looked at it, the thoughts was that introductory paragraph was not really as needed. Yeah, talking about it, the introductory paragraph said that trash collectors retiring, state statutes, towns must provide solid waste. And as we're gonna get into it, that was a very big trigger for some people, so it's actually a pretty good thing that it was left off. It does say state statutes require a town to provide solid waste disposal service, but does not specify how those services are delivered. So actually, that introductory paragraph was on Facebook.
It didn't show up on my page, I don't know why.
Because here's I've got a screen print of it, and at the intro paragraph, I'm looking at it, the intro paragraph actually did show up. So it showed up on question 1. It wasn't repeated on all the others. It did show up on question 1. So it did show up on question 1.
They've done a technological glitch somewhere.
I don't know. certainly not the Facebook guru, so I can't help you. But again, people were very satisfied with having the trash picked up, and it looks like they wanted to continue it. Even there was a strong, very strong indication that they wanted it to be trash to be self-sustaining.
Yes.
So I know the select board voted not to do that. So I think that as a committee, a recommendation might be that we really, they should seriously consider that it be self-sustaining. And that they were not particularly willing to have a central dumpster. And I think maybe, I know we were just talking before, Brian, if you want to just really quickly recap Auburn's central dumpster.
We were just talking about how Auburn had did away with their program and now they're back on version 3. Of bringing it back with dumpsters placed in different areas around town and curbside pickup and there'll probably be a version 4 before they actually get it rolling again.
Yeah, they had a lot of problem with the centralized dumpster, that everyone was putting everything in it and people from not from Auburn were putting stuff in it, and then they went to the next iteration where I guess it was by the police station. They thought that would be better as
Freeport.
and that ended up not being better, and so there's,
Well, Auburn has a population of
Yeah, right.
30,000.
Exactly.
yeah.
Even Freeport has a larger population than we do, but then Freeport took some dumpsters away from there, or not dumpsters, but silver bullet type containers. And put one in a parking lot out in town. They put one at the police station, and then they had a couple at their transfer station. And they found that people were throwing their trash in the ones at parking lots. They moved that one. Then it migrated over to the police station. They thought it would be good there. People started throwing their trash in it there. So they removed them all together and took them all back to the transfer station where to be bought.
So and we've, I've made a couple of calls trying to get some information to provide on what other towns' experience on stuff has been, but for that. Now, I did also include some comments. One, I do want to point out, it is in the survey results. We have a Bodenham selectman, and you guys know, that was very, very much stating, and he stated this several places and several times, that we're only required by state statute to provide a place for household waste to be taken. Currently, that place is Pine Tree Waste in West Bath. Any resident can bring their trash directly for a fee, but requires no trash bag. Unfortunately, that is not correct. We ended up looking at that and asked Casella, who owns Pine Tree Waste down in West Bath. And it was very clear. They said, our West Bath facility is not a residential drop-off facility for residents outside of West Bath. So I guess because it's domiciled there, West Bath has got some kind of deal with them and uses it that way. But if Bodenham residents were to bring household trash, they would have to pay the gate fee, which is a tonnage fee. And it's $165 a ton, which I have to say, because we're only paying Casella 115 tons. So whoever negotiated that last contract, go them. Because that's a significant savings, but of course, we're buying in bulk. So that makes sense.
It might be a good point, considering if everyone keeps to the roadside pickup. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, it's just,
It's a big point though.
we just need to make sure that that's not the case there. So I don't know if you looked at, there were other comments, like one respondent lived on Beech Nut Ridge. They said they paid taxes and are not afforded the service. And what we found, Beech Nut Ridge is actually a private road. And you checked with Plummer,
Right.
and
And he does pick up, this may be a new resident that posted that. I will try to reach out, find out if they're new, maybe they just don't know.
but it picks up at the top of Beech
At
Nut.
the end of the road, or
It
beginning
doesn't
of
pick up
the
the houses because it's a private road.
right, because Beech Nut is typically in very bad shape.
It's pretty much all private, so as well, if I recall correctly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I live on a private road. We take it up to, we're off the Ridge Road. We're always taking it up to the Ridge Road. So, and that actually gets into one of our agenda items further on is communication strategy. I think as we look through some of this, what we're finding is that communication is, it's just an issue. And even though there's a corner in the newsletter that talks about solid waste, somehow we need to look at how we can either beef that corner up or do something differently or somehow get a little more information out, like, that the haulers will haul on public roads, but not on private and that kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys saw any other comments. There are a couple of other comments that I want to bring to people's attention that I did not put in the summary because they were a little bit off of the topic. So, but did want to go through a couple of those. So on the results, does anyone have any thoughts on?
Well, like you said, it's very clear, people like curbside pickup and they're willing to pay tax.
Yeah,
Self-sustaining.
yeah,
I think that was a takeaway. I mean, even with the 11%. Margin of error that you just mentioned, I mean, granted, it's a small sample size and everything else like that, but I mean, when you look at the data. 30 to 0 for, self-sustaining is hard to argue with those numbers, so.
yeah. I agree.
Total respondents,
42.
42.
We had different responses for different questions because the way it goes on Facebook is not everyone responded, and then we put it on the 2 friends and family and forum sites, so I had to go through and make sure that we weren't counting double. So we went through and did that. So some of the questions, question number 1, I think had the most, with 59 respondents. And then there were some, I think, that had, Pat, you're right, somewhere. Well, that one's just 42, not at all willing, but if you add it all up, but on trash tags being self-supporting, only 34 people responded to that. We did get 1 response after the cutoff. And I'd already done the work on it, but that response was right in line with the majority. So. Just added 1 more. I think this is pretty clear on when we do recommendations is that the town is asking for us to continue it the way it is from their perspective, and they're also saying we are willing to pay for it. There was 1 other comment that I thought was a really good comment and one that maybe we should think about at some point in the future as we're going through that. And that was on self-sustaining. And the comment was this individual wanted it self-sustaining, but also a taxpayer-funded program to provide some tax to low-income households. And that's something that I think is definitely worthy of discussion when we get around to here's the trash hauler for our recommendations is, how would we do that? I mean, administratively, I think that might be a little.
You can tie that in with the general assistance.
Yeah.
Because the town has a general assistance manager, and you can tie it into that somehow.
You get your general assistance, you get 10 tax.
Yeah, we can look into that for sure.
I thought that was a really good comment, and I think it really makes sense, particularly as we start talking about some of the figures that we've run, some of the cost benefit analysis.
As a landowner who has had trash dumped on their property.
Yeah,
It's kind of a hot topic.
Yeah.
Well, not hot
Yeah.
topic, but.
no, I
it's like-
agree with
it's
you.
like-
I agree with you. When there are people that can't afford it, what do they do?
And
I don't even know if it was somebody who couldn't afford it, it's just
that happened.
people, a certain element.
I think the other thing is. Trash. Disposal in certain areas has been an issue for a long time. I remember
Yeah,
7-8 years ago, there was discussion about people dumping their household trash into the garbages over at the landing. So I mean, it's been a thing for years and years. I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon.
well, and I think if we were to run down the route of eliminating the entire department and whatever savings that is, and I've started running figures on that, not just the trash piece, which we'll talk about the trash stuff. That's just would exacerbate that issue, particularly based on what some other towns have experienced. The minute you do away with stuff, people are just tossing it anywhere.
I mean, I walk our dog up and down Post Road. And actually, my wife has been picking up,
Mhm.
returnables.
Mhm.
And she fills a bag. About once a month, I guess, takes the fill a bag, but that's not picking up all the other random stuff that find beside the road.
What was it last year? I think it was a cover.
Yeah.
On Post Road.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
it's cheaper. Yeah.
So the town seems to be very in favor of keeping the program as it is. That said, we did have some dissent on it. Another comment. Let's see. Again, this is selectmen. We are not required to provide any municipal solid waste pickup or local drop off. We are only required by state statute to provide a place for household waste to be taken. Currently, that place is Pine Tree Waste in West Bath. Again, that's not true.
Right.
Any resident can bring their trash directly there. No, that's not true. The town also allows multiple private haulers to pick trash up without any municipal assistance. Therefore, our clear responsibility is legally met in having no program at all. And we'll get into that in a
Doesn't sound.
we'll get into that. I just wanted to read that comment, and there were other comments on how they thought the cost of a dumpster, which is why I did the cost benefit on dumpsters. But there's a little more on that coming later. But that was some of the stuff that's posted on there. So any other comments on other than the results seem to be really clear direction of what the town is wanting.
I have to say the caveat, if you consider 50 people, the town.
With the number of households we have, which are, 1,100 households,
1,410.
1,400 households. And there could be dual people commenting from a household, but in general. Sample size is not that unreasonable, but yes, everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt. That said, you guys, I don't know if you were watching the last select meeting when they were talking about. Yeah, there was one woman who was sitting in the audience. I was sitting here, who was concerned because she looked at our RFP, and of course in the RFP, we asked for a lot of options so that we have things to choose from and represent, and she was very concerned about getting another one, and I don't recall seeing her response on Facebook. Again, I think Facebook, elderly people are not as often out there. So I think that if anything, it might have been a little underrepresented on some of that, at least underrepresented on people that want trash pickup, maybe a little overrepresented on people that want it to be self-sustaining, because elderly, of course, fixed incomes, they may not.
Sure.
But I'm not sure how much at this point, how much we can do with that. And one of the things that went back and forth several times on that was, and I'm moving on to the cost benefit was people were asking about dumpsters. And they were saying, and that's always, okay, you can get a dumpster, go ahead and get a dumpster. And the issue is, we'll eliminate, there was sentiment that will eliminate the program, you get a dumpster and you're saving money. The problem with that, I ended up doing some of the math on it on just the trash piece. Now, this does not mean if we eliminated recycles, that would be a little more savings. And again, I'm working on the numbers on that. Do that. At this point, for us, the smallest dumpster available. So what I tried to do is make it, how would we come to as easy a cost benefit, where it is cost beneficial, so giving the benefit out to people who want to replace with that. It's $72 a month, $864 a year if it's emptied every 2 weeks. If you want your dumpster emptied every week, it's more expensive. Of course, that makes sense. $85 a month. So in addition to that, there's a $75 delivery fee. So that as soon as you establish your dumpster, you have to pay that $75 to get it established. And if it's removed before 1 year, there's a $150 charge. We did not put any of that charge into the analysis because a lot of people keep it for more than a year. And bulky waste like furniture, large trash day and that kind of stuff is priced separately and a resident must call to find out, hey, I've got a couple of box springs I'm gonna get rid of. You've got to call, find out, and then how you take care of it. Several households, try to put some additional information in. Several households could purchase a dumpster together, which of course would make it a little better.
Do,
Pardon?
and a lot do.
Yeah, there are certainly people that do that. And the dumpster must be placed where Riverside's equipment can easily access. So people in town with small or non-conforming lots, not near parked cars, there may be a couple of people that have an issue with that. Probably not a big issue in this town where most people have more property, but it's certainly something to consider. So I did, and this is just straight math, the lowest dumpster price at $72 a month. And assuming that trash tickets are at $360, which we said was self-sustaining, you would need to have 20 bags a month for it to be cost neutral. That of course doesn't take into consideration the fact you have to pay $75 to get it. I did not consider that, but that's something. So you'd have to have 20 bags of trash. If you did the math skewed the other way, let's say you had the small dumpster, but if you wanted it emptied weekly and you're only paying $3 for trash, it'd be 28 bags. So anyone that's got a dumpster right now that is emptying it weekly and, unless they have 28 bags in it a month, they're losing money. I mean, certainly they can do that. That's their whatever. I think one of the problems, the majority of residents in Bodenham do not generate 20 bags a month. Now, certainly some households can combine and maybe get up to that. And then, it's especially true, I think, our senior citizens. When seniors don't generate that much trash. So it just makes it more difficult for the senior citizens to get to a cost benefit, an equal cost benefit. And then of course there's always the issue of having to, contact Riverside, get them out there, do all that kind of stuff. So
In with that, if the town of Bodenham said, yeah, you're on your own, and everybody called up Riverside or some of the other ones. I guarantee it would be several years wait to get dumpsters, because there's not a supply of dumpsters just waiting to go out there. I know in the big construction dumpsters, they're big shortage of those, so I can pretty much guarantee that. There's some trash piling up.
Eliminating trash program, it's not cost savings, it's cost shifting. And it doesn't make sense on the trash only level. Again, I'm working on some of the figures on the whole thing. If we didn't do recycling at all, if we're just looking at it monetarily, the problem with some of that is that you take it off of the tax, that's great. But the amount of tax people pay is directly tied into what their assets are. So poorer people in town that have a lower value get less savings, in real dollars, and yet real dollars have to go out to have somebody private haul their trash. So that in effect would be punitive to lower income households. And certainly there are a bunch of seniors that are on that, limited income stuff. So, as people talk about savings, it really is cost shifting. And again, I don't have all the math done. I will do up the math and walk through it with you guys the way I've done this. There does become an issue with it may not be cost effective. It's just cost shifting. So does anyone have any thoughts on the cost benefit analysis on what it would take to do that?
Like pretty much lays it out there. What I see.
And we're assuming that Riverside is compatible with Casella and Kevin Smith and whoever else has dumpsters.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith, you said, is retiring, going out of business.
I think he's getting ready to retire. He's starting to sell off.
Now, is Kevin another private hauler in town?
He's a
Yeah.
harbor hauler out of Richmond.
Does Kevin pay the town $100?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so I wanted to move on, we were asked,
Do we have any information about it? It's not on the agenda, but do we have any update about the RFP?
yeah, the RFP has been out, it was issued several weeks ago, it's out on the website, you can take a look at it if you want. The responses are due back, and actually I've got that down here on November 9th. So one of the things we're gonna wanna do is ask for those responses for our next meeting so that we can evaluate. And we can put them all in kind of a spreadsheet to see what they are.
Yeah, and I've received, calls from a few
Have you?
people interested in it.
Okay.
Wanting more information on that, so.
And are you publishing that more information so everybody's got it?
They just wanted copies of contracts and stuff like that. It's,
Okay. Cool. All right, our next thing that we're going through is MMA gave a legal opinion. And that's in there, I will say, I read when we were asked, the town manager asked that this legal opinion be shared with the committee. And we were asked that, I'll get into why we were asked to do that. But I show out that the legal opinion, you guys have probably read it, but it does say in there, and this is the legal opinion, every municipality must provide a method or place for residents to dispose of domestic and commercial solid waste. I put in the excerpts of our very first meeting, and lo and behold, it's exactly what we did say, is that, you know, each municipality shall the section in our minutes, what we said is, this section appears to be broadly defined, and that municipalities can meet the requirement in many different ways. However, the town is responsible for facilitating that process. We also, on the next meeting, talked about how other towns met that requirement, including, for instance, the town of Bowden, that does not have a solid waste committee at all, but they own ownership in, what's the name of it?
Main waste energy.
Main Waste Energy, and that's how they meet, their requirement to meet this. And so we have, this legal opinion is very much in line with what we have been saying all along. So I was actually meeting with Nicole on something else, and I asked her, since, you know, we're all on a line, why did we need to have that? One of our selectmen sent an email to her, and as it's public information and subject to FOA, I had a copy of it. And what I'd like to do is read this to the group, then we'll talk about it a little bit, because I think we may have some opportunity to do some education to the select board on what we're doing and how we're going about it. Anyway, so it starts off, it's from Alan, it's to the town manager, and it copies in Tony, the chair. It says, "Good morning, Nicole and Tony. I am disturbed by seeing the informal public surveys being, oh, and I must say, this singles me out, but I think it only does that because I put it on Facebook, and that's what he's saying, as opposed to, you know, the committee. So this pertains to the committee, even though he singles me out personally. I am disturbed by seeing the informal public surveys being held by Wendy Cunningham of the Solid Waste Committee. She is of the opinion that the solid waste statute requires a municipality to have a solid waste department. I, meaning Alan, am of the opinion, after living in the large town of Gardner that had zero solid waste department, that statute requires we supply a place that will accept our community solid waste, i.e. Pine Tree in West Bath, or that we allow private contractors as an option for dumpsters or curbside pickup. Not that we must have a municipal run program. I feel we should know what our legal requirements are by state statute before decisions asking for feedback, and not trusting neither mine nor Wendy's legal knowledge. These public surveys are out now, and a timely answer is needed, so we are sending accurate information to the community." Nicole replied she already had the legal opinion, so she just sent it back, and the response on that said, and that legal opinion is what you guys have here. It says, then please advise the committee they need to make it known that we have zero legal municipal responsibility to provide curbside trash pickup in town, or B, provide a place our municipality for people to bring trash. Residents can bring their trash to individually and pay for disposal at Pine Tree and West Bath. We allow private haulers in town if they don't want to drive themselves. Therefore, as a municipality, we are not required by state statute, as Wendy states, to have a municipal solid waste department. This needs to be made loud and clear. So I made a couple, since I've had this a while and I've had a chance to digest it, and there certainly is some miscommunication and misunderstandings here. I mean, obviously, as we talked, we have never said that we require a solid waste department. I personally have never said, because we've never thought it. We did talk about how Bowden did it without and how that met the requirement. So we were fine, you know, we're certainly in line with that. The info that one of the things says that our committee needs to make known we have zero legal municipal responsibility. I would say that at this point, that's not true. For a couple of reasons. One reason, you know, we may meet some requirements, but the other thing is that we really have to remember is that we have a solid waste ordinance that says we have to do this. So at the municipal level, we do have a legal responsibility to do that.
Alan, for some reason, has been very vocal about the town should not be involved.
He wants to get rid of it totally. That's correct.
Everybody should get their own dumpster. And that's his
Yeah.
opinion.
So he's talking that way. Now, the state statute, here's what happens with the ones that was it Pine Tree that you know gives us that a lot of people use in here in town. In the ordinance, we made the private haulers pay us $100 a year. That ostensibly is because their trucks and stuff on the town roads would cause some damage, and that is supposed to be, you know, help compensate for that. I think basically we did it now, Brian, you and I talked, every community does it, so, you know, we jumped in. I think, Brian, we used to have it at $250.
It was $250, and a couple of years ago, I went to the select board and asked for it to be lowered.
Because we're not doing
I was in the area.
it. So people were not doing it. So basically what the town is doing is putting a barrier up to free enterprise by the trash haulers. And it's very understandable. We want to compensate for what's on our road, but we are making it more difficult for them to come and pick up our trash. Making something more difficult, and it is free enterprise. I mean, it's a commercial, you know, venture, but making it more difficult while they are in town, and it may technically reach, because again, this state statute is very broad, so it may technically reach, but it says every municipality must provide a method or place for residents. So while the state statute may accept that, as Alan pointed out, neither he nor I are lawyers, and so I would say if the town wants to do away with that, with all the solid waste and not do anything, that probably needs to be run by an attorney first, just to make sure that the fact that we are making it more difficult, I mean, albeit it's only a little more difficult, $100, it's not that much. But does the fact that we're making it more difficult for trash haulers to come in and pick up trash meet the standard of facilitating trash hauling? I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to say that.
Well, I'd say as a practical matter, somebody running a truck around town once a week is not probably breaking down the roads significantly.
Yeah, but again, it is in the ordinance, they do pay us, so there is something going back and forth.
Is it more of a vendor fee? Towns, I mean, if someone goes door to door, you need a vendor's license.
Yeah, I don't think the ordinance does not,
Whether it costs, they charge for that or not, but I know there was an outfit going around trying to sell meat door to door, and I called up. And they said, they don't have a vendor's license, I don't know if they're doing it in towns.
Yeah, I don't think it's a vendor license.
The ordinance as written right now requires a commercial hauler to have a permit to operate in town. And that permit was $250, it's now $100.
Oh, we don't really do anything other than collect their money. I mean, we don't vet them particularly, do we? Do we look at them, and is there a process for the town to go through to say you can come in or you can't come in?
There's no, nothing.
So it's basically they,
Well, so there's paperwork that they have to fill out, and at the end of the year, they have to report to me. How much they picked up over the year. So that I can report it to the state.
okay. But again,
So I could pay my fee and pick up nothing all year, and I would be on $100, but you wouldn't be.
Yes.
yeah, all residents, yeah,
Nobody would be checking to say. During the year, what are you doing? It's just the end of the line.
So I mean. There are other haulers that you're starting to see a lot of small. One-man teams going around with a dump trailer now and picking up trash and stuff like that.
yeah.
And I think it's, if we're gonna charge for one, we have to charge for all.
And some of them, I mean, there have been times that there have been some that have bought and have not wanted to pay.
Yeah, there's one company that absolutely refuses. To respond to my. Phone calls, my emails, my letters,
Or is that,
they hang up on me when I call them.
is that somebody who does dumpsters, or is that the guy with the dump truck? We take junk.
Dump trailers, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And actually in the ordinance, there's actually $1,000 fine for operating in Bodenham. Without a permit.
but in order to enforce that, we would have to take someone to.
I'm not aware that it's ever been enforced.
You'd have to prove that they were in fact doing that. We'd have to, so
That would be a question for the codes officer.
anyway, the bottom line is. There's certainly some confusion on the part of the selectmen as to what our committee is doing, what is permitted, and. In fact, really, is it savings or is it just cost shifting? And certainly there's also, I mean, in the email, he talks about giving false information. The irony was not lost on me that there's false information coming from, as Pine Tree does not take the waste. So at this point, I think one of the things we need to say, are there next steps to this, the select board not having a grasp on what we're doing? And some of that is shame on us. We should, how do we report back? I mean, I know we do minutes and it would be great if they read the minutes. But should we maybe say we want to do a presentation to the select board and lay out what we're doing and lay out that in fact, Pine Tree is not an option for the people here, and to show them actually the cost benefit and to show that it's not savings, but it's cost shifting, and talk about the fact that it really is going to hurt people on the lower income scale because their tax savings, if we did away with everything, is not going to do, and then it's going to hurt landowners. Back to your point, is people dump stuff all over. And again, we're trying to get some information on what other committees or other towns that have done away with recycling, what's happened.
This is from Maine Municipal Association there. Clarification.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't really spell out.
Yeah.
So does.
Oh, lawyers never spell out.
The town has an attorney, I assume, yes. A retainer that we can ask questions to, or are they gonna bill us hours?
You get billed for the hour, yes.
I did ask, when this first came out, I asked whether we could do it, and Nicole wasn't really that interested in going to the attorney on this point. And it's some of that, I would say, I mean, we're talking about the state ordinance and how we may or may not be based on the fact of a misunderstanding from the selectmen. I think the bigger issue on this is, what does the town want and what is the town willing to pay for it? And what we've seen is the town wants trash pickup to be continued the way it is. They're willing to pay for, the trash program to be self-sustaining. And even if there were no state statute anywhere, what does the town want to do? I mean, we're servicing the citizens. So if the citizens are telling us this or that, and by doing the math, we're finding that eliminating it's not really saving people money, it's cost shifting. I think the bigger issue is what the town wants as opposed to whether or not, you can dance on the head of a pin because we make Pine Tree and other haulers pay us $100. And I don't know.
I do think it's a good idea to present that cost analysis to the select board, and it could be just a paper with, we hand all the select board members, of course. Some may not agree with that.
Well,
At least one we know.
But-
he's very much wanting to eliminate everything.
Yeah, and I mean, he was a duly elected
Absolutely.
select board member, and that's his opinion. But yes, I think the other board members need to hear. If we're all kind of, well, I don't know if we are not, about,
Well, then we should have, are we, are we in agreement?
Well, I think it's important. to hear The real facts out there, that yes, the town does have a responsibility. And yes, the current ordinance does say there will be a solid waste committee.
Chris, they are looking for us to redo the ordinance, so we could redo it as a way that says, hey, we're not requiring it. Right now, it is in effect and we are required legally to have the program. Now, I'm not suggesting that we do eliminate it because the town is showing very clearly they don't want to eliminate it.
and we can't really get all twisted up about what one board member
Absolutely.
says, because he's just one.
But
One man's opinion.
But I think because he carries the weight of a town official and does put out information that may not be consistent with what people are looking for or even consistent with the truth, that it might behoove us to do a presentation to the select board and say, look, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is what the town is telling us. This is, and I'll get up the rest of the figures. In fact, I'm here somewhere what I've done already, but I will have the rest of the figures by the next meeting as to if we were totally to eliminate, again, what kind of percentage savings is that? And it's really gonna hit the poor people, people that don't have the same valuations. And then also, I think it would behoove us to weave in some experience from other towns or people that have more understanding of what happens when you eliminate a recycle program.
If I were to make a recommendation of
Yeah, please do.
intent to have that presentation, whether it be verbal or just a one-page quick synopsis, however that happens to be in. The elections are coming right up, so we're gonna have a change in here, so there's gonna be two. I think it's two different members, and on top of that,
Mark is running again, and he's unopposed, so there's only gonna be one change. Tony's not in, and I think Joy is running instead, so.
so. And then we're gonna get the RFPs back here pretty soon, so I think if anything, it might be. Maybe the most appropriate time to do that would be after we get the RFP responses to make a recommendation with a justification of that recommendation at that time, just kind of.
Okay.
Boil it all together.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we actually have more than just a one pager, because I think it's important to show. Like the Facebook results, that this is what the town is really asking for. And I think it's important that we talk through that piece as well as talk about the money piece of it.
I understand this, and just like anything else, when you present information, you can provide all sorts of background with it, but I think the overall quick synopsis is. if we give anyone 100-page report, no one's gonna
No,
read
no,
a
no, yeah,
100-page
yeah,
report,
I agree.
so.
Agree.
Everyone just likes the abstract and conclusion kind of boiled down, and you can have all that support information, but just really
Right.
make that concise. In the presentation.
No, I agree.
Probably
I was-
best for not only the board, but the rest of the public who maybe follow along with it.
Yeah,
And I think that was a underlying. Thing that I kept hearing when, was it last select board meeting, when they're talking about the report that. Came in regarding the barn, and everyone's just like, is there a simplified version of this, because this is long, so I think we should just. Keep that in mind,
Yeah.
short, sweet, to the point. Layman's terms, everyone can easily understand,
Yeah.
make an educated decision.
They are required to provide for trash. Handling trash. Going to private dumpsters is more expensive than curbside pickup.
it is for trash only. That said, if we eliminated recycling. And eliminated the entire department, there would be a small savings. That would benefit people that have higher valuations more than it would benefit others, because you're substituting. A variable cost for a fixed cost. You know, your variable is your taxes, which are based on what your valuation is, your fixed are. You know, I don't care how rich or not you are, a dumpster costs what a dumpster costs, period.
Well, it's
So-
just the other option of how many people really wanna just throw everything away, my guess is. And I know we're crossing the boundary of really where our objective is,
Mhm.
but. Would go out on a limb here and say, hey, would you, if we ask the public to want to eliminate recycling, the overall. Would
Say no.
Would be absolutely not.
Well, that actually gets us into one of our next steps, which is a good segue. So we do want to do some kind of presentation to the select board. When I work up the next spate of numbers, and like I said, I've taken the first run through it, I've got to refine what I've been doing. Once I do that, I'll bring it to our next meeting. That along with the cost benefit on the dumpsters. You know, as well as I do think it's important to say, hey, the town is really asking for this and that, and maybe just the graphs. But I also think it's pretty important. I don't know whether to share the Facebook survey result that has the comments in it. It shows very clearly Pine Tree does not accept residential trash,
Yes,
or whether we just talk about it. We can walk our way through that.
I think. In that presentation, I think the focus, if you're trying to sell anybody. Would be more about what people want as opposed to having a legal argument that costs us.
Absolutely.
It's
Yep.
gonna be by winning what we do, not with.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I couldn't agree more.
Authorization to do something, and this is what people.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah,
they like it the way it is. They're willing to pay whatever
well, okay,
the trash tag. Carry the full cost.
yeah,
okay.
all right, so
There's actually there's so much more to the program than just trash. And recycling. There's electronics, there's paints, there's bulbs, there's mercury, there's batteries, there's,
yeah.
and the list goes on. So there's so much more to the program.
I think, Brian, what I will do is I'll. In my free time, I'll run through the figures and all that, but then maybe you and I can sit down so that you can. I can get some of those other points on what's in the program and what eliminating the program would actually mean. So that we've got those to. But I mean, obviously, it's cost benefit. If they. Town views that as worthy to keep, then that's the answer. So I'll run through some numbers and then Brian, you and I can sit down now that you're COVID negative.
This week.
Don't do that. But anyway, you did. Does any other questions or anything else on kind of this brouhaha that's?
So the elections are next month. When do selectmen take office? Is it that
I mean,
election or is it
it's-
January?
Yeah, so Tony has one more meeting, I think, and that's,
That was, the last meeting was last night.
oh, his last meeting was last night, huh? So, yeah, so the next select board meeting will have. as long as, and again, there are only 2 slots and 2 people running. Mark is running again, so we'll have consistency, and Joanne Joy, who's been very active on the comprehensive plan committee and all kinds of stuff. So she's the only other candidate for 2 slots, so I'm assuming she's gonna win. And so, you know, we'll have just 1 new person.
So the next select board meeting, I believe, is the 8th, the day after the elections.
Yeah, I don't. Because we're not gonna have the RFPs back until the 9th. So if we're gonna wait and do everything together, then we might wanna get the meeting after that. And I know our meeting is the day after the select board meeting anyway.
Well, actually, that was wrong. Select board meeting is on the 7th, election day. And our meeting would be on the 8th.
Our meeting be on the 8th and the
RFP is the 9th.
RFPs are due on the 9th. But we can actually, I mean, we can always special meet after the RFPs, so we pull everything together.
And then the next select board meeting is week of Thanksgiving. I'm not sure as if we. really
Yeah, that's
want to
probably
do
not
that.
good, so maybe
So I
we'll,
think we're probably looking at December.
that said, I'm gonna throw one other thought out there, and it's not a thought that I'm really endorsing, and that is, should we, on some of these Facebook posts, should it come up again, you can take your trash away. We just clarify, I don't wanna get in a Facebook war, I don't know of anybody that has brought their trash to West Bath thinking they could do it, because we would have heard. Hey, you can't do that, and I had, so, I mean, even though that comment's out there.
I think we should not get engaged in Facebook wars.
Yeah.
Just let it
If
off.
somebody takes their stuff to West Kent and gets turned around, then they can
They-
write back to Adam and say, hey, I tried this, it didn't work.
I agree. I agree. Obviously, it'll be captured in our minutes, it'll be out there. Maybe what we do after we do our minutes is. And maybe what we should do is post. The survey with the comments, you know, the survey results that show the graphs and the comments on it. And then maybe we can just put something out on Facebook, thank you for giving your input, the survey results are available at the. Town hall, and it will be in the survey results, and if anyone's interested, they'll find it. Is that,
Yeah, we can put the results on the town website.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's get the minutes,
Certainly dramatic.
I'll get the minutes out. We'll agree next meeting, and then we'll post the survey results in a minute, and we'll just. Put a quick little note, thank you, friends and family, for. Providing your input, if you're interested in the results, they're all available there.
Let's say if you give it. Oh, that's true.
Yes.
Not even a discussion.
Mhm. Agree.
Keep it factual. If you want information, this is where you go find it.
Yeah.
Done.
Yep. If you have any questions, email our fearless director. All right, that brings us actually into the next steps, which are recycle survey ideas. And then after that is, you know, if you have time and want to go through it, you know, thoughts on recitals. So I sent out to you guys just kind of background in my thoughts, because I know it's kind of tough to say, what do you want? And I wanted to throw something out that you guys could work from. But again, these are all. They don't need to be. You know, thoughts at all. We did also include, the 2020, the topics that were talked about in 2020. Survey that was done. It did use a 5-point scale, which was great. I think there was a lot of detail that maybe wasn't necessary. I mean, asking things, the swap shop for hospital items, for books, for clothes, for this, for that, you know, a place for return. I'm not sure we need to get into that kind of detail, and I think that kind of skews, it doesn't.
Moves away from our focus, so.
Yeah, and that's, you know, when we looked at what makes a successful survey, it's a stay on what your focus is kind of thing. So I had thoughts here, um. I, you know. And I did have one thought that wasn't, that I didn't put down there, and that was, I wanted to ask you a question. And that is, I did see one thing out on Facebook. And one of the questions I thought was, single stream recycle versus sort. The engineer's report actually said single stream, sort doesn't really give you anything. I thought that the recycle barn commingles everything, but they were very clear on a Facebook post that they do keep it in its different sorted piles until they have enough to send. Now, a couple of things on that. I was just confused because I thought they did commingle based on some of the stuff we had talked about before. And when I thought if you were saving stuff for more than, what is it, 90 days, you have to be a transfer facility.
You do have to be a transfer station to hold certain items.
Oh, but not all. Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Waste, I mean, hazardous household.
Right, anything that's considered a solid waste or a trash,
Okay.
you have to be a transfer station to hold.
So that doesn't
So
mean.
if person was to bring something into the gift shop and say it doesn't go away in 3 days, it becomes solid waste. Just because nobody took it within those 3 days. So there's a line.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that I'm hearing some inconsistencies.
I think when the recycling program was at the, I think Brian was saying everything was separate, but you dumped it all into a truck, they took it away.
Okay.
I don't think they're doing that now. They're
Okay.
keeping things separated.
So they used to commingle, and now that they're kind of private, they don't.
I don't know what they do over there.
Yeah.
No, and not a big deal. It's
It is separated.
one of the questions that I thought that we maybe should ask that weren't in my initial thoughts was, should we ask about, single stream recycling? How do you like single stream? Although on the other hand, the engineer's report was pretty clear that single stream recycling is absolutely fine, based on the way that, the recycle people now can do all the sorting. It's amazing what they can do.
My thoughts is to do a hybrid program. Where we have single stream and then we set aside boxes for whatever's paying.
Right.
So if number 2 colored is paying, then we
I see,
have
yeah.
that pulled out and we bail it and we sell it. Or if, number 1, which number 1 will probably never bring money, but whatever those items are that are paying and covers the cost of the mailing and all that, transportation. But I think a hybrid program is the best way to go.
Anyway, that was a little aside. I had some survey topics that I put down. Does anyone have any others? It was just,
I don't have that.
that's,
Separate.
it was in a separate one.
So,
And I just, and these are what was asked before, and these are just some topics, but they're not actual, questions at this point. So I don't know what other topics people might want, and then we have to figure how to craft appropriate questions. And what I might suggest is that once this group decides on topics, that maybe 2 of us form a subcommittee. Can only be 2, but that's, it can be 2, and then together we kind of work on what questions are that we can bring to the rest of the people. But the thoughts I had were importance of recycling a lot of people in this town are very, go green and all that, and recycling is very important. So we should do that.
I'm curious, before we go down these,
Oh, yeah.
Brian, what's our mission statement again? Did you refresh my memory
For,
for the committee?
I have that in front of me, but it's the ordinance and the RFP. I don't have the exact time.
and the reason we're talking about recycling is because the ordinance will cover recycling. And so as the ordinance covers recycling, we should, within the ordinance, reflect the town's desires on the recycling, so that's why we talked about. You know, doing a recycling survey, so in other words, does the town want recycling? For environmental reasons, do they want it because frankly, it takes bulk out of their trash that they have to pay for? One of the things, are they willing to pay? I mean, right now, recycling is not self-sustaining. I mean, anecdotally, I've heard people say they're not willing to pay, recycling should be free, so encourage people to do it. But, you know, shouldn't we verify that?
This might be,
If that is.
it might be a good question, I didn't hear me coming from as it relates to the ordinance, the. Where are you, and maybe a little fuzzy, and maybe it doesn't matter. It's pretty much, was it, yes, it was Tuesday, right? Yeah, yesterday's select board meeting. Everyone more or less voted, let's do what we're doing and stay that way for the interim for. Until we decide otherwise, so like, how far do we wanna go down that road right now, concern the select board voted 24 hours ago to.
I didn't.
Let's keep doing exactly what we're doing.
I didn't watch it. Was the voting unanimous?
It was, yep.
That's interesting.
Well, it was, the initial question was to. Don't go down the road of looking into options of the old mark, and that was pretty much unanimous, and then it was. Should we look into. Fitting out Pond Road, and then it kind of got, well, let's just keep Pond Road the way it is.
Yeah, and I think that that's consistent. If you look at what are some of our next, you know, future projects. One of those is, and that's why I think maybe the survey is important, future projects is. What needs to happen to Pond Road if we're going to do the recycling stuff, which. And maybe nothing.
Any survey we put out, I can predict the answers right now, just like I predicted the answers to this survey. Like, everybody loves to have their trash picked.
While I do not disagree with you at all,
I know,
I think it behooves us to go through, and we can do it on the town website. We're not pushed timing wise like we were.
the bigger question would be. Does the town want an increase in recycling program? Do we want a true transfer station? And then it would get into. What are we doing?
And that's one of the things that I can, that I put down, one of the points was. You know, the importance of items that require us to be a transfer station, like bulky trash. Right now, we do it 2 times a year, that's it. You know, does the town want it more often? And then if so, then, you know, what are some of the other things that we have to do for transfer station? I know the last talked about, you know, styrofoam. I don't know if that's a
Nobody wants.
transfer, you know, styrofoam, you know, drop off. It talks about, oh, not, that's true. Robert's Auto Body down there on 24, if you have extra stickers.
He's out of business.
Is he?
Yeah.
Darn.
He's out of business.
Never mind.
Shut down their used parts and then they shut the service.
Well,
Done. Damn.
cause I just a couple months ago. Darn. But things like tire disposal, that would require, I think, us to be a transfer station.
I don't think we wanna get back into tires. It's actually. I take mine to lease,
Yeah.
you know, it's just.
Yeah.
Right, just for information, when you have the faulty items, last time I dropped some carpet and stuff off, it was like that big truck full.
Right,
Is that about what it amounts to?
you mean as far as quantity?
Volume, yeah.
No, it was probably a truck and a half.
And if you do it twice a year, that would be 3 trucks.
Right.
A year, except if you had a transfer station, you might get people bringing more stuff.
Yeah, so exactly.
I'm just wondering how big it would have to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been using public works dump trucks.
Oh,
Yeah, if we became a transfer station, we could collect those items daily.
Yeah.
And we have a trailer, we could just You know,
No.
as it comes in, loaded into the trailer, and then when the trailer